If you haven't watched the film already, I would say like an elevator pitch is that it's a celebration of Black African and Caribbean people on the land, sharing their culture and their passion and bringing the history from their families and their friends together. And it also explores the kind of justice issues that are so tied in to Black access to land and having a stake in the land that is around them, and explores how we could potentially make that land more accessible in Bristol.
It started because I actually had a conversation with a friend on the Ashley Vale allotments who has had a plot for over 40 years, and she knows a lot of the old Jamaican, the Afrika Caribbean guys who have their plots there. And she was saying, gosh, they've contributed so much, and not just in terms of what they've put into the ground, but what they've taken out of the ground, but in terms of their culture, what they do with the food, the tools they use, and the importance that she understood that piece of land that they had has meant to them and means to them. As several people said, for their mental well-being as well as their physical well-being, it's been vital to have that space to go to.
The signs which say no blacks, no Irish, no dogs aren't that far in the past. And so the allotments provided that safe refuge. We came here to play music and drink our rum, because they couldn't do that. They couldn't do that over at St. Andrew's Park. They couldn't do that anywhere else. So it was the space for them to come to and do that. So it was such a precious resource for them. The issue of land is so connected to how we can make sense of home, how we can feel connected to where we are. And so much of my research had shown, if you're a Black child, you are 50% less likely to have gone to the countryside in any given year than a white child. You're about 30% less likely to have used a green space in any given week of your life, right? So when you start to add that up, by the time that kid is 18 years old, right? If you do the maths, over 1,000 hours less on that space. So their connection to the land is already, whether it's just urban land like allotments or a park, is already reduced,
40% from minority ethnic backgrounds live in the most green-deprived spaces in the country. And, these are shocking facts that, something needs to be done about it. And I think Manu has started working on that. And, it was really fortuitous that we came together at the point that we did. Because, the City Council could be doing something about this.
I think we can sometimes simplify what inequality actually means. In America, they've done all sorts of studies around the closer you live to a big green space, the more expensive your house is, There's no way they're ever going to build on the downs, right? Now, this thing that is so simple, just green fields or whatever, is actually a big factor in how we can start to look at inequality, especially as we start to think more closely around ecological degradation, as we start to think more around, are cities the best places for people to live? Should people have food sovereignty? How does that food sovereignty come about? What do reparations look like for people who've been marginalized?
For me personally, the interview that I resonated with the most was definitely Gulid, who was the young Somali man.
People who tend to connect with nature are the people who are a bit in their 30s, 40s, who have more established financial roots.
What he had to say was, definitely true for a lot of young people, in that they are constantly moving between rented accommodation. It's getting harder and harder for young people to buy their own homes. And, even if you do manage to get on the property ladder I don't know what the percentage of those people will have their own garden space. So it does feel like, especially for young people, it is getting harder and harder to have access to a green space.
I look at like our connection to green space and land, and or lack of it, not as a problem in itself. It's a symptom. It's a symptom of a selfish society. It's a symptom of a society that wants to protect for its own. But actually, the really radical thoughts out there that inspire me are around, what does ownership mean? What does it look like? How can we actually protect people from having to be kicked out simply because the rent price has gone up? The main inspiration that I got from this film is that these are people that are actually on a personal level doing something for themselves, but unwittingly they are fighting against a system that doesn't actually allow us to just have that bit of time away from spending money all the time. The more people that are willing to engage with land in urban spaces, it might seem like a daunting thing to be waiting on a waiting list. Some waiting lists are 4 or 5 years long, but the more people that are doing it, the less excuse that authorities have to not protect those spaces and to not bring green spaces back into use that have now been cordoned off for development.